coming up on Wrestling Life.
Just as talent moves between both companies, I think fans do too. And, I don't think we have to be tribal. We can appreciate AEW for what it is and WWE for what it is. Being a fan of one doesn't mean you exclude the other. But I think that there are people whose wrestling fandom may have been waning, and AEW brought them back to a feeling they had as a fan way back when. And some of those fans, I think, have stuck around and have ended up supporting both companies.
This is Wrestling Life with Ben Veal, the show that celebrates wrestling's past, present, and future with real talk from real talent.
Hello guys, welcome to Wrestling Life and welcome to the final Wrestling Life of 2025. I'm so pleased to be joined by a return guest, a guest who has been a huge inspiration to me as a writer and who today comes back to the show to talk about his new book, The Inside Story of All Elite Wrestling. This book is All Elite. The author is Keith Elliot Greenberg, and joining me as well on the show is my co-host with the most, Ash Ajaz, the People's Broker. Ash, Keith, welcome to you both.
Hey again.
Hey, I'm great to be here again.
Good to see you, Keith. I mean, it feels like only a matter of months since you were last on talking about bigger, better, badder, and you've already written yet another book. You are a machine.
Well, I mean, the books happen to come out the same year.
Yep. So when does this? So this is this beautiful book. So I'm going to hold up here now because I think if it's not on anyone's Christmas list yet, it should be, because it's a stunning book.
If you don't celebrate Christmas, right?
Yeah, or any just a festive read or just a great book generally. But this
did we miss Diwali? I think we missed Diwali.
Okay, it's all about timing, isn't it? But this book, for any wrestling fan, I think this book is tremendous, and it charts the first 5 years of All Elite Wrestling, but really it's more than that because it's everything that led up to AEW becoming a possibility. When does this book start to become a possibility for you, Keith? When are you approached about a project?
First it was a phone call. It was a phone call from Adam Hopkins, who's the head of public relations or publicity for AEW, and I knew Adam for a long time from when he was at WWE. And he's like, look, there's talk going around that they may want to do a book, a coffee table book about the first 5 years. And, would you be interested? And I said, yeah, I most certainly would. And he said, do you have a retainer or any formal relationship these days with WWE? And I said, no, I'm on their documentaries. But it's on a, assignment by assignment basis. And I'm, when it comes to wrestling, the only entity I'm fully committed to month after month is Inside the Ropes magazine. And I actually feel a great deal of loyalty to them. And that's something I wouldn't be willing to give up. But, no one's putting pressure on me to be exclusive with them. And, it's kind of like a polyamorous relationship when it comes to pro wrestling. And so, then, the conversation stopped, as they often do. I didn't want to bother Adam Hopkins. And then I receive another call, and now Random House wants to meet with me. And when I speak to Alex Davis, the editor from Random House, he tells me that he became a wrestling fan during COVID when he was just sitting around and, had nothing to do. And wrestling was original programming that was on every week. And so when he finally went to a bookstore, because he's a book editor, the first book he purchased was my book, Follow the Buzzards, Pro Wrestling in the Age of COVID-19. It's the first professional wrestling book he ever read. And,
wow.
That book didn't sell very well, by the way. And I think it's because it was so soon after COVID, people would be depressed. They told me they were depressed by remembering the COVID year. And they certainly didn't want to read a book about it now that it was over, but he read it. And so he wanted me to be involved. I was the only wrestling author he knew of, I think.
Wow.
And so, I lucked out in that. For all the times as professional writers we feel overlooked, there are those moments when things align and suddenly there's an unfair shift in our direction. And this was one of those instances.
Well, it's awesome. And also, I mean, it's such a fascinating time because, I mean, I've spoken about this a lot on my show. One of my few really positive memories from 2020, especially, was I had a little ritual. Every Sunday night, I watched AEW Dynamite. I'd save it, and Sunday evening, I'd look forward to it because AEW did a tremendous job, I think, especially during 2020 and 2021, of telling really good, long-term, episodic storytelling. Put a lot of time in, really thought about the atmosphere, obviously had Daily's Place. It became a real highlight for me. And I remember every week it felt a little bit like potentially as a society we're getting slightly back to normal because you started to see this, the stadium, a few people, and then a few more people, and a few more people. And the antithesis of kind of what we were seeing in WWE with the Performance Center and then the Thunderdome, I felt like the AEW programming during that time had an awful lot of soul to it. And it was a genuine highlight to me. It's something I look forward to every week. And I developed so much love for AEW, I think, during that time because it kind of connected me back to wrestling.
I mean, I think that also during that period, AEW was fresh.
Yeah.
And they'd only had a few months of television before COVID hit. And so they were the sparkly new thing. And as wrestling fans who were accustomed to the traditional WWE product, it was an alternative that was also funded, not at WWE's level, but it was competitive in the sense that, they ended up on HBO and, they were on ITV in the UK. And, so it wasn't like they were on some obscure network in the middle of the night. Yeah. And it's not like the final days of World of Sport where, you had rotating promotions and the times would just change without anybody being informed. Yeah. This was something that a fan could easily find. And they were very creative during the COVID era. I think by having the wrestlers sit in the crowd at Daily's Place, which happened to be an open air amphitheater, which was convenient because the Khan family owned it. They were able to create the studio wrestling atmosphere of the 60s and 70s, a small, very vocal audience. Now, WWE did attempt to do that at the Performance Center on their shows as well. I personally liked the that WWE implemented. I thought it was very creative, and I liked the idea that the most enthusiastic fans on those large LED screens would be shifted to the front row. There were a few unfortunate incidents, as we know. Some fan, put some material up there that, was deliberately designed to undermine the WWE product. But, that's like if a news reporter is on the street and somebody stands behind them and does something they're not supposed to.
No, it's undoubtedly creative. I think for me, I just found it was like another reminder of how much the world had changed. But I know WWE won awards for it. I know that it was, incredibly innovative what they came up with. And it was something we were seeing here in the UK. Lots of the game shows and Saturday night shows were doing the same. They were having video panels. But for me, there's just nothing that quite like the
live audience.
The live audience. And what I love, in your book, you address, for example, you address how, the Guns, people like that, how, they...
Yes, Colton and Austin Gunn. Right?
Yeah, I remember them vividly from those times. These were guys who had barely had any TV time, but they were,
They were still training.
Yeah.
wrestling, but they were still training. They were almost interns. They weren't quite full-fledged wrestlers yet, but they were very loud in the audience. And they would bring jars with coins and shake those jars to create more noise. And it endeared them to the more experienced wrestlers who no longer looked at them. If they ever had the inclination to view them as Nepo babies, they didn't, because they were adding to the product.
I mean, what was innovative, I think, about it with the wrestlers around, they made it a lot more interactive. So it wasn't just people just sitting there to clap or something like that. There were some like storylines happening with it. I still remember, like, there was a time, I think MJF was having like this poker game going on and they were betting, and I think the Guns got involved, and then they got involved with the match or something. So I think that's what was the cool part that I really liked. And that's what kind of like kept your interest rather than just a couple of guys wrestling in an empty arena, which we used to see, unfortunately, with the TNA. I think they tried to continue on. But yeah, that atmosphere that AEW created, I thought was genius, I think.
And I pointed this out in a recent interview. AEW, I believe they were the first ones to move the ring closer to the stage. Mm-hmm. So you weren't watching that long walk past the empty seats down the ramp.
That was
the guys
great.
Came out, or the women came out, and the next thing you knew, they were in. And it's a small thing, but it's very innovative. And if we've all spent time talking to wrestlers, and it's those small touches that make the product better, or make a particular match better. There's always a logic between every little thing. I think Ben knows Molly Spartan, Wolfgang's wife. She was once explaining to me that, let's say it's a 6-person tag match. If you are outside the ring and someone is going to do a tope suicida, there needs to be a reason why you're outside that ring, rather than just sliding outside the ring. And the fan may not actually understand that, because they're watching the other action. But she said somewhere in the back of people's minds, a little thing might click. Like, why is that person outside the ring? Why'd that person just roll under the ropes? But if you tell someone in the match, throw me through the ropes, then there's a reason for you to be. All those little touches cumulatively make what could end up being a very good to a great match. And the presentation that AEW presented was something that, even now, the hindsight of a few short years, I think we romanticize in the proper way and give it its what it deserves.
Well, I think, you say about a few short years. The thing that really jumped out at me when I was reading through the book, Keith, is I don't know that any wrestling company has gone through so many changes in such a short period of time. It's a fascinating book. You definitely had your work cut out for you, trying to chart in the story of like the origins of AEW up to present day, pretty much. And I really enjoyed, because I felt like with every page I was reliving a memory. But it is incredible how much AEW has achieved in just over 5 years, isn't it?
It is incredible what AEW has achieved. And look, every company, no matter what type of company it is, for that matter, if it's a restaurant, it goes through boom periods, and it goes through periods where people are disenchanted with it. I have a good friend here in Brooklyn, Giovanni, who owns a restaurant here in Park Slope, Brooklyn. Giovanni's Brooklyn Eats, for those who may be in Brooklyn sometime. And, he had a fire, and he had to move across the street. And I remember when he reopened, he kept tasting everything on the menu, because it was close to 2 years before he reopened, and he lost some of the kitchen staff. And he would taste an item and he'd go, There's something about this texture that doesn't feel right. It's not my food that I want to present. And it's all these little things that you have to fine tune. And AEW definitely went through a period where I was hearing everywhere their storytelling. And I've said this repeatedly. Back at the beginning, they had to rely on the history that preceded AEW. But now they have their own history. Yeah. Now we're 6+ years in. And now they don't have to go to what happened in New Japan or what happened in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla or what even happened in Rev Pro before AEW was formed. Now they can go into their own history and build their storylines from that, something that's all theirs.
No, I think you're so right about that, Keith. And when I was watching Dynamite this week, after such a long time, you saw Dark Order appear on the show.
Yeah.
And I was like, it just took me back to that 2020 period when Dark Order was a regular thing and Brody Lee came in, and it just took me back. And nostalgia, they've already created that nostalgia in the last 6 years, and that's so amazing. Right. And I've followed AEW from even before AEW existed, from when the chirp started about the first ever All In and the 10,000 tickets and what's going to happen. And I was blown away. I'm like, man, I want more of this. And then when AEW launched, I couldn't be more happier, because I don't think I'd be a wrestling fan right now if it wasn't for AEW.
And I think a lot of people feel that. And just as talent moves between both companies, I think fans do too. And, I don't think we have to be tribal. We can appreciate AEW for what it is and WWE for what it is. Being a fan of one doesn't mean you exclude the other. But I think that there are people whose wrestling fandom may have been waning, and AEW brought them back to a feeling they had as a fan way back when. And some of those fans, I think, have stuck around and have ended up supporting both companies. You also have divisions where, just like I remember there were fans who were loyal to the NWA and AWA, but wouldn't watch the WWF and vice versa. And I guess the tribalism is part of it.
The way I describe it about this, I'm like, you know what? We all love pizza. You like your pizza with, I don't know, jalapenos. I like mine with onions or whatever on it. Some people like it with pineapple. I don't do pineapple on pizza, but we all love pizza. We can agree on that. So I think let's just enjoy the flavor that we do and, just all get along.
I'll take it even further. I think you can enjoy whether you're a vegan and you're eating some kind of vegan substitute for cheese, and even gluten-free, there are alternatives to the dough. So I agree with you.
The thing you mentioned about the word fan has come up quite a few times in this conversation already. And a thing that really jumped out at me with reading the book, because I was fascinated to kind of explore, see how you'd explore Tony Khan and how the idea came about and his relationship with wrestling. I was really, really interested to see the pages that are dedicated to Tony Khan and how much of a fan he was from such a young age. What did you learn from kind of speaking with Tony and your involvement with him in this book?
Well, there was one story that didn't end up in the book, but it was a great story. And, so we were just talking. I mean, he gave me a lot of time. And so, we were just, we were talking about ourselves as kids and becoming fans and what grabbed us. Just like I would talk about with either you guys if we were sitting in a cafe somewhere. I was sitting with Tony in a cafe. And he told this story that, his father, I think, is the wealthiest Pakistani-born man on earth. And so, that's a lot of pressure when you have a father like that. And needless to say, his parents wanted him to go to a very prestigious school. And, he was at a school where he knew a lot of kids and he had some friends, and he kind of wanted to go to a school where a lot of them were going. And his mother in particular was pretty vehement, like, no, you're like a really bright kid, and these kids become like the leaders of the business world. And, this is where you're going to go. So the parents said, well, just take the test. That's all you have to do. You have to take the entrance exam.
Title Run Toys Series 1. Dangerous Danny Davis. Wrath. Juventud Guerrera. Ernest the Cat Miller. And Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Coming to the ring soon.
So he takes the entrance exam, and Tony Khan is kind of guy, like, if he focuses on something, he gets 100 on the exam. That's not a surprise that he was able to do that. So they're like, the parents are, ecstatic. It's like, wow, you made this school. Like, you got 100 on the test. You didn't get anything wrong. So you're going to go to school. And he said he remembers they were sitting outside of McDonald's in Illinois. And he's like, you guys are lied to me. You misled me. Like, I never said I was going to the school, and you never told me I had to. All I had to do was pass the test. And so they're like arguing in the car, outside the McDonald's. And the father, who's a businessman, he's like, all right, let's negotiate. Like, what could we do for you? You'll do this for us, and we're going to do something for you. And he goes, all right, this is what you can do for me. And the father kind of sits back. He's waiting for this, extraordinary demand, probably involving money. And Tony Khan goes like, ECW is having a fan convention. There's going to be this match, this wrestling card there. And I'm going to go to that card, and you're going to take. The father's like, that's all you want? And so his father takes him, and there's footage of, I believe, Too Cold Scorpio doing some type of moonsault variation onto Chris Jericho with like a young Tony Khan with, thick glasses and a Taz shirt in the audience. And that's the payoff for that.
Man. Wow, incredible to think how the full circle moment of years later, Taz being on the commentary team for his own promotion. Right. Absolutely incredible.
Promotion, yeah. But everybody, everyone can relate to that experience. I remember, and this is what it made me think about. Like, my parents liked wrestling. My grandparents on my father's side were very big fans, particularly my grandmother. My mother was a wrestling fan in New York in the 1950s. Even after I was born, early 60s, she was an Antonina Rocca fan. My parents, coming from immigrant stock, were Bruno Sammartino fans. And I remember I used to watch wrestling from Los Angeles in Spanish, which is how I learned to speak, not fluent Spanish, but functional Spanish. And I don't remember what I'd done, but my parents were mad at me, and my mother decreed that I couldn't watch wrestling. And my father wasn't home, and I don't know why he wasn't home, because he tended to be home around this time a lot, but he wasn't that nice. And I knew my mother liked wrestling enough that I could manipulate her. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to watch wrestling because I'm punished, but I just want to turn it on to make sure I'm not missing anything big. She's like, oh, okay. Then turn it on. And once it was on, she started watching. I looked at her eyes, and it's like, yes, she forgot about the punishment because she's watching it now.
The things wrestling has made us do. We have all got stories.
Yeah.
But everyone relates to that who's a fan. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Lie, cheat, and steal.
Yeah. Right. Lie, cheat, and steal. But I think everyone relates to Tony Khan sitting in that car.
Yeah.
And saying,
We're all
this is all I want.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'm interested, Keith, because obviously you've been in this business for so long now and you've seen so much in your time. When you heard the rumblings about AEW, because I remember when I first, was seeing what was happening with All In, and then curiously, I was at a show in Bristol, of all places, in late 2018, and this promotion had Cody Rhodes booked, and it had Bruce Pritchard, it had Conrad Thompson, it had a few others. I remember they did this like quasi kind of press conference at the end where someone asked Cody about what was next, and he went something like, "Oh, you'll see some news is coming." And it was about a week later that they did that press conference. I think it was on New Year's Day.
New Year's Day at midnight Pacific time was when they announced it. Yeah.
So I mean, when I heard about it, I was excited, but equally, it has been so long since there has been anything even vaguely resembling competition to WWF, WWE, that it's still, and of course, we haven't really seen anything as British wrestling fans for a long time airing on mainstream television, that I was cynical about whether or not it could be pulled off. And I remember watching that first, obviously I saw the pay-per-views, but then seeing that first episode of Dynamite on October 2nd, 2019, airing on ITV and being like, wow, this is something else. Like, this is really good quality.
This is real.
Yeah, this is real. This is high end. This looks great. This is great action. There's great storytelling. Where we're kind of, I guess, with all of your kind of knowledge of wrestling, how long you've been in the game, did you think that this could be what it's become, or did you kind of enter into it with cynicism initially?
Everyone except for Tony Khan entered into it with cynicism, including, as the book points out, some of the wrestlers who ended up working for him. So for so many years, we'd been hearing about these upstarts. And look, we had TNA, which still exists and now has a close relationship with WWE. But, there were spurts and stops and times when it seemed certain that they were about to go out of business. And we had Ring of Honor, which was always, to me, a very high caliber of wrestling, but they never had the budget to be even on WWE's level. It's almost like they existed as a company for WWE to cherry pick the best talent and rebrand them. So even though the word was that the founder of this new company was the son of a billionaire, and he'd worked in sports management analytics, I think it's natural to assume, okay, it'll go on for a few months and maybe no one will watch their TV. And then the father will say, all right, I've spent enough on this. Let's shut it down. This happens all the time. I guess Tony Khan was the one who knew that it wouldn't. He knew what he knew about wrestling. He knew the energy that he himself had. This had been a drive that was inside him that couldn't be extinguished. And he also understood the sports and television landscapes in a way none of us do, from being so inside. And, he proved us all, including his own talent, wrong for underestimating this project.
Yeah. I want to talk about a few of the kind of, there's so many big names in AEW that have played such a big role in it, but there's a few I think that are worth a bit of special discussion here. The first one being Cody Rhodes, because obviously, a good chunk of this book, quite rightly, includes Cody and his role in the company. How pivotal was Cody Rhodes, do you think, to the story of AEW up until 2022?
Crucial. It's funny, before the book came out, I was reading what people were saying online. Oh, I bet there won't be one mention of Cody Rhodes. And there's quite a bit about Cody There's some fans who are uncomfortable because it's a lot of original AEW guys on the cover, and Cody Rhodes is not on the cover. I mean, he's a WWE champion, unified champion. So, I could see from a market. And first of all, the book is by Keith Elliot Greenberg and AEW. So, I understand why AEW didn't want to put another company's champion on the cover. It also would perhaps make it look like they were piggybacking off of WWE and incapable of highlighting what they are. So I don't dispute that decision, but that was their decision. But when you read through the book and you look at the pictures, and please be aware, this book is a great book, not just because of my writing. And I'm not shy about saying that, you
can say it. You can say
any less than, a wrestler. But there's just beautiful photographs. It's truly, a brilliant coffee table book. Like, look at this. Here's Brody Lee. Just a fantastic portrait of him. Two images of him. So, there's photos of Cody Rhodes, and there's Cody Rhodes is a big part of the story, and Cody Rhodes' contributions are acknowledged. And this book was, the name AEW is based on the Elite, which was the faction in All Japan and Ring of Honor and the Indies, and the Elite was the Bucks, the Young Bucks, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, and Hangman Page. And without the Elite, I don't know I think they all were crucial parts of the sum. But Cody was a guiding force, an exceptional guiding force. And I will also say that were it not for AEW, I am not sure Cody would have been able to come back to WWE and rock it to the top. So AEW has had an impact on WWE. And of course, WWE has had an impact on AEW because every talent there grew up as a WWE fan. And just as we as fans watch the other, watch both products and, New Japan and monitor, Mexico, obviously both companies are watching each other. It's no coincidence, and no one's confirmed this for me. This is me speculating as a fan. Yeah, it's no coincidence that WWE purchased AAA after Tony Khan established the relationship with CMLL. And, you could argue, was it better before all of this? Was it better after it? All I know is that I'm paying a lot more attention to AAA and CMLL than I was previous.
Yeah.
One thing I always say, and that's one of the reasons, I mean, I love AEW anyways, but the thing I love about AEW is that they recognize the history and the world outside AEW and the wrestlers, what they have accomplished. They give them credit. They, say he's been 6-time world champion, including all their world champions from even outside AEW. We've been kind of programmed by WWE that WWE is an island and nothing else exists and it's nothing. So this is one thing, and glad we talked about Cody, and that was going to be my question as well. Like, it's great to see Cody in the book, and why wouldn't he be? He was a pivotal part. Even when they show a lot of these footages, even to this day, whenever they have the anniversary show and stuff, Cody is in there. They don't kind of try and hide him or anything like that. He is in there. Even someone like Punk and stuff, they've shown like footage of him as well. So
and I was going to say about CM Punk, because of course he's not on the cover for understandable reasons, but he receives plenty of space within the book. There's a lovely quote, I think it's from Tony Schiavone, talking about how that show when he returned is basically the only show he can ever remember that sold out on a rumor of someone coming back. And again, I think, Keith, going back to what you were saying about Cody, would we be seeing CM Punk main event in WrestleManias now and as a world champion had it not been for AEW bringing it, him coming back?
Look who the champions are in WWE. I mean, we have we have Stephanie Vecchia, who was not a star in AEW. But,
nobody knew her. But
she was, you could argue that she was first exposed to a non-Latino audience when she appeared in that spectacular AEW match. And then you have Cody, you have CM Punk, you have Ricky Saints. I mean,
Jade Cargill,
right? These people are at the top of WWE now. And it's not a coincidence they had to pass through AEW first. At the same time, I don't think that you can say, well, people are great. If they're great in AEW, WWE just takes them. There are some people that are not leaving. Some people have stayed put. I mean, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know about contracts. A guy like Darby Allin, Jon Moxley, Brian Danielson.
Jon Moxley, yeah.
And, a coach, essentially, backstage, as well as an excellent announcer. There are some people, we don't know what's going to happen eventually with MJF, but I mean, there are people who are distinct AEW people. And it's not like it was before, like it was in the old Ring of Honor, where if somebody was exceptional, WWE could just come in and take them. Or, if someone was a standout in MLW, WWE would, if they wanted to, could buy them out or what have you.
Yeah. And also, I think that case you were saying about kind of going from AEW to WWE, it's also worked the other way around wonderfully. Like, Jon Moxley being a wonderful example of that, this character that was creatively burned out in WWE and never really felt like he fit, finding his perfect space within AEW. Chris Jericho, who I would say had a real career renaissance after he went to AEW from WWE. So,
what about Ricochet? I never knew Ricochet could cut promos like that.
Yeah. Biggest one for me was Brody Lee. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was like a totally different person. I'm like, what? He can talk, he can cut promos, he can be funny. Oh my God, who is this guy?
Yeah.
So
like a silent, mountain man in WWE. He was good at the role, but I never realized that he was such a witty guy, that his mind works so quickly.
Yeah.
I'm Mark Merrill, former WWE Intercontinental Wrestling Champion and 3-time WCW World Television Champion. I am thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Bad to Good. The inspiring story of a wrestling wild man chronicles the highs and lows of my life, both in and out of the wrestling ring. It's a powerful narrative of overcoming adversity and the importance of perseverance, no matter how tough the journey gets. Co-authored with my good friend and award-winning journalist, Ben Veal, this is a story I've long wanted to share, and I truly hope it inspires you. I hold nothing back in this book, revealing the untold truths of my extraordinary life, from my modest beginnings and my first boxing match to the struggles with addiction that almost consumed me and my evolution into the charismatic Johnny B. Bad. This book offers an insider's perspective on the world of professional wrestling and my journey as a sports entertainer. You'll read about my pivotal negotiations with Vince McMahon that led to the first ever guaranteed contract in the WWF and how that decision marked me within the locker room. I discuss the impact of my relationship with my then wife, Rena, known to fans as Sable, on my career. I also confront the darkest moments of my life, how I hit rock bottom and how that experience sparked my rebirth. leading me to become America's leading motivational school speaker, inspiring young people and transforming lives. Featuring forwards by my good friends Diamond Dallas Page and Lex Luger, along with contributions from Mick Foley, Eric Bischoff, Vince Russo, and others who shared this wild journey with me. Bad to Good is a story you don't want to miss. Head to Amazon.com or WrestlingLife.online now to pick up your copy.
Apparently Vince told him in WWE to do like a Southern accent. Can you do a Southern accent? He's like, no, I can't. So he told him, you're going to be a mute. So I'm like, I'm glad I saw him, but it was so sad. And I'm looking forward to reading more about Brody in this book, because I was so saddened by his death. And I was like, we're still enjoying him, and in so much he could have done more. So I'm looking forward to reading him about it.
And it's great that this book, again, it's about the first 5 years of AEW, and Brody Lee's a big part of that. So, I will be completely upfront. This is an AEW tribute. So people are, some people are not happy. A lot of, not as many as I suspected, but some people have grumbled. How come there's nothing about the backstage altercations involving CM Punk? Well, it's a tribute. And, don't really talk about, that type of stuff in a tribute book. And is it necessary? Because there is so much, the curtain is pulled back. This is not a book where the reader is kayfabe. You learn all about Brody Lee getting sick and how the entire locker room knew that Brody Lee was sick, and they were told to keep it private out of respect for his family, and they all did. And that is a fact. There was nothing being leaked, and that is part of the backstage, behind-the-scenes AEW story, and that is in the book.
That's what made it so hard. I remember, wasn't it Boxing Day? I think it was Boxing Day, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I remember turning on my phone and being like, what?
Yes,
that was a shock.
Boxing Day tribute. After I think he passed. Did he pass away on Boxing Day? Or it may have been.
I think that's when I heard it. Maybe he didn't, but I remember after Christmas turning on my phone.
Yeah. Or maybe it was the Boxing Day broadcast, which was the tribute to him. Now I'm getting confused.
Yeah,
I can't remember what it was, but I remember hearing the news and being absolutely shocked, because it was only like a couple of months earlier that he'd been TNT champion. He was a big part, and much like when Bray Wyatt passed away, obviously a couple of years later, we're very used to seeing like people we love in wrestling, hearing these sad news about legends passing away. But when you hear of someone, dying right in the prime of life, it's so tough. And, AEW has, dealt with a few very big talent losses in the space of a few short years, and I think dealt with them very sensitively as well. So it's same with how they've handled the Briscoe brothers. And unfortunately, that is a reality of pro wrestling. One thing that one person that we have to talk about, because I think everyone can universally be grateful to AEW and Tony Khan for handling of this, is Sting, because I don't think there was a person in the world who wasn't disappointed by his WWE run and how that ended. And to see him be able to go out on his own terms and to go out, I mean, as you write in the book,
actually, it was the terms that Tony Khan, to be honest, gifted him. He didn't even want as much. He just wanted to do something.
Yeah.
And Tony Khan was the one who decided that Sting would not have any losses when he during his final run. He put him with Darby Allin, who was the young person who could bring out a daring side in Sting that no one had ever seen before. He enhanced Darby Allin. Darby Allin enhanced him. He retired as a champion, and his final match, his retirement match, he had his son.
Amazing. One of the best retirement matches I think I've seen,
Beautiful photos in the book of obviously the 3 generations of Sting in one ring, and just so iconic. And another really iconic bit, and I was kind of reading the book and seeing that, I was thinking, when's this going to come in the narrative? Because you were kind of talking about mid 2023, and then suddenly you're talking about 2024, and I'm like, hang on, when's All In going to come? But of course, you've saved All In for the pinnacle you've saved it for the pinnacle of the book, haven't you?
That was the way. As a writer, you understand. At first we couldn't figure out, when does this book end? The initial thought was it'll end with the first All In, and then the first All In passes, and the process is taking a little longer than we thought. There's some organizational things going on. And meanwhile, Adam Copeland comes in and there's Sting's retirement. And I'm like, I have to include Sting's retirement. So I discussed this with the people at AEW. And it's like, it's such an important moment that we can't wait for the book on the next 5 years to include that in there. Let's do it when it's fresh. And I remember then the people at AEW were going through the photo archives of that, match in Greensboro. And they're like, oh my God, these photos are so good. And so when I spoke about the debut of Adam Copeland, I spoke about, Sting's retirement, and I brought, wound it back. But the true highlight of the first 5 years was the first All. So I went forward and I went back.
Did you get an opportunity to come to London and be there for first?
I was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't decline many opportunities to go to. I mean, as a New Yorker, it's very easy because New York and London are very similar.
Well, next time you come over, we have to meet because we didn't know each other before.
Yeah, I know. I did meet with a guy I really admire from Inside the Ropes magazine, Tom Forty, a couple of times.
Lovely guy.
Yeah.
I have Tom to thank for writing for Inside the Ropes myself and everything that came along with that, because Tom was the one that introduced me in the first place. Great guy. You were there, weren't you, Ash? You were there at All In 2023. Same as me.
Man, that was so amazing. Like, as soon as they were announced, I was just waiting for the tickets to go live, and that was the first wrestling show ever my son ever attended with me. And I'm like, man, kid, you're being spoiled. You're attending first ever wrestling show is with 83,000 people. And he was blown away. He absolutely loved it. It was an amazing night. And I think someone was asking me this question, like, what was your favorite, card? I'm like, it may be recency bias, but I think that was an amazing card. Like, who wasn't on that card? So again, it would be interesting to read about that card and in the book, and that was an amazing night.
And we forget, that was in the midst of the MJF Adam Cole partnership, and as you recall, they beat Aussie Open for the Ring of Honor tag team titles in the first match of Zero Hour.
Yes,
and Mark Davis and Kyle Fletcher, and this isn't that long ago.
Hey.
Kyle Fletcher was a tag team wrestler, a great tag team wrestler, and Aussie Open was a great tag team. But now he is one of the biggest stars in the industry, no matter which company you're talking about.
I was thinking about this. I went to a Rev Pro show. I think it might have been my first or second ever Rev Pro show I attended. And the opening match was Mark Davis was injured. So it was Kyle Fletcher versus Swerve. That was an opening match. And Kyle, you couldn't recognize him. He was this skinny little kid, but super, athletic. And to see him to make this, he is in the running for my wrestler of the year for AEW 2025, Kyle Fletcher. I mean, that guy is going places. I think he's a future world champion. No doubt.
Yeah.
And also, that's another name. Just, we're jumping all over the place, but Swerve Strickland. From where he was in WWE just a few years ago to main evented All In 2024 as world champion. Incredible.
Right. And think about that. Swerve Strickland, when he was in WWE, he was part of a faction.
Mm-hmm.
And here it's whose house? Swerve's house.
Yeah.
Again, there are people who benefit both ways. But Swerve Strickland has truly, in my opinion, I'd have to ask him this personally, found himself.
Yeah. I was watching his interview recently. I think he was speaking about CVV. And he's like, he was asking him that question. The good thing was when I came to AEW, no one remembered me that I used to be in NXT. Like, oh, were you in NXT? Were you in WWE? Because he was totally different and people don't remember him. And now he's like totally reinvented himself and just became a totally different wrestler and just this world champion. I mean, he's like the top guy, in the company. So amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of these guys, like, now there's this storyline going where, he rescued Hangman Page and, but Samoa Joe is the champ and what's going to happen. And, Page and Swerve, they have a history of tensions, but they've gotten together, but they both want the title. Now it's interesting. Now all the storylines we've seen before have made sense. But let's talk about not just Swerve. Let's talk about Prince Nana.
Yeah.
Manager. Like, I remember I did a book in 2020 on called Too Sweet, Inside the Indie Wrestling Revolution, about indie wrestling. I spoke to Prince Nana, and he was a Ring of Honor guy. And, he was always kind of thinking of angles and ideas and ways to make his character bigger. And AEW gave him the opportunity to find himself. Again, he's not a guy who passed through WWE and was frustrated, but AEW gave him that stage.
He even got a coffee brand now. He's selling coffee.
He does. He does, and he'll be gratified. He'll be gratified to know that you mentioned it.
Yeah. And another one. We've spoken a lot about the men, but I mean, we'd be doing a huge disservice if we don't talk about the
Tony Storm.
Tony Storm, like my favorite character in wrestling today, and completely unrecognizable in every way from what we were seeing in NXT just a handful of years ago. Just incredible.
Well, let's talk about the champion now, Chris Statlander. I mean, a few years ago, she was playing an alien in, someone from outer space in AEW. I mean, characters evolve. I mean, Harley Cameron, now she's turned in. She was a pretty girl before. Now she's, this ventriloquist and this character, and she torments Mercedes Moné. Mercedes Moné, you could argue, has grown into, as a wrestler, a bigger version of herself.
And that was the thing when AEW first started. Like, people used to criticize the women's division. Oh, you're not treating women properly. Look at WWE and blah, blah. And I used to say to people, it took WWE like 30, 40 years to really build a women's division. AEW, give them time. And now look at the women's division there. They've got
it's a short period of time.
In the shortest period of time, 4 or 5 years, their women's division is top, like really amazing, I think.
Yeah, and again, so is WWE's. But, AEW, that's where they are. Again, WWE is the industry leader. No one's expecting that to change. But in terms of the product presented for the wrestling fan, AEW is right there.
And I think for me, I mean, to go back to the book, I mean, as you say, this is a big book, but it is full of beautiful images as well. One of the things that I think must have been so challenging for you as a writer is that like so much has happened in this period of time, and there is so much talent in AEW, talent that's current, talent that's been cut, talent that's gone, talent that obviously have come in after you went to press. It's impossible to write a book and to keep it up to date. It's a time capsule, isn't it? But it must have been hard, I'd imagine, to kind of try and make sure you fit everyone into that, really, that goes into the story.
Yes, and there's people who, in retrospect, I probably should have shoehorned in there. I look back, I've had discussions about it with people. I've thought about, what did I miss during those first 5 years? I should have mentioned this. I should have mentioned that. That's any book I do. Yeah. There's always, you never want it to turn into a book of, then this happened, then this happened, this happened, then this happened. This guy won this title, and then he lost to this person. You're still telling a story. There still has to be a narrative there.
Yeah.
And certain things get lost in the narrative.
What would you, I mean, I guess really as the takeaway of this book, you know, what is the story of All Elite to you, Keith, really? But how would you sum up the story of All Elite its first 5 years?
A company that unquestionably beat the odds and redefined the wrestling industry in its first 5 years, and we will be discussing these first 5 years and the impact it's had elsewhere. 50 years from now.
It does feel, and it's hard because we're in the moment, but it does feel like wrestling between 2020 and 2025 has been one of those most pivotal times in wrestling history in terms of so much has changed so quickly. I suspect 20 or 30 years time we're going to be looking back at this period.
And
pretty
we'll
fascinated.
Yeah. And by the way, I'll still be, even though I'm in my 60s, I'll still be around and I'll be talking to you guys.
You'll be writing the 50th anniversary book of all these.
Yes.
I will be, yes. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm glad you made that comment, Ben, because we talk about, history like we've been talking about 1992 and how a pivotal year that was for you.
30 years ago. That's more than 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and SummerSlam 1992 was my all-in. I mean, going to Wembley Stadium, that was real bucket list thing for me back in 2023 because I never thought I'd get to see wrestling in the summer at Wembley Stadium. And for me, that I just got goosebumps as soon as I walked in because I felt like I was there at SummerSlam all over again.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Cool.
Yeah.
But again, we will be talking about that all in 30 years from now, unquestionably.
Yeah. Well, it's been a very exciting year. It's been a very exciting. This is a lovely episode to finish on, Keith, because I'm pretty stunned at how much my life has changed this year, how much wrestling life has grown this year. I'm so grateful to Ash, who has been an incredible supporter and co-host this year. It's been a great year for books, and a few honourable mentions at the end of this show. Obviously, one more plug for this. The History of All Elite, the first 5 years. This book is All Elite, Keith Elliot Greenberg, and All Elite Wrestling is out now. But also your other book, Bigger, Badder, Better, is out now. I adored that book. And as we talked about on a previous episode, which people can find if they look through the archives of this show, that is a book which is much more than WrestleMania 3. That is everything about the change of the territory.
Long-time impact.
Yeah, it's the before and after WrestleMania 3.
It's actually there's parallels between the two books that came out this year that I wrote. Bigger, Better, Badder, WrestleMania 3 and the year it all changed is about, 1987, WrestleMania 3, what led up to that, and the impact it had over the years. And this is about the first 5 years of AEW. This book is All Elite. And the impact it's having. But again, 30 years from now, there will be books about the first 5 years of AEW and the long-term impact those years that made on the industry.
I'm just going to give an honourable mention as well to a good friend of both of us who was on the show with Ash and I a few weeks ago. So I'll plug this one as well. It's just turned into Ben Veal's book club. Irresistible Force, The Life and Times of Gorilla Monsoon by Brian R. Solomon. Because this, again, I mean, I've just been blown away this year by these 3 books, which have all very different periods of wrestling, but just all add up to this beautiful story of this industry we love.
And the fact that Brian and I have been good friends for decades even makes that sweeter.
So what's next? When am I having you back on the show next? How many more books?
Well, I'm currently doing research on a book about Busted Open Radio and the Pro Wrestling Nation 24/7, which is now the 24-hour wrestling channel on Sirius XM, which is also available, obviously, on podcasts and YouTube. And that's also a book about how this one radio show beat the odds and how they're redefining radio in the 21st century.
Oh, that's amazing. You never stop, do you? You are a machine.
No, I mean, I'm a little bit manic, and what would I do? Like play golf?
Yeah. Well, look, how can obviously buying the book, how can my audience, if they're not already connected with you, find you on social media, find
Yeah, I'm on
stuff?
Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, but that's always like near like the limit because you can only have 5,000 Facebook friends, and I'm on Twitter, so you can find me on.
Well, good stuff. Well, I want to encourage everyone. I know Ash is really, really looking forward to getting his copy of this book this Christmas. I'm very, very grateful that I was sent a copy a few weeks ago by the good guys at Random House. So I love this book. I want to encourage everyone to go out and buy it because it's just a really, really wonderful exploration of a company which has, as you say, overcome the odds and given many, many great memories to us wrestling fans over the last 5 years. And long may it continue because, as you say, tribalism, there's no point of tribalism in wrestling. All we want really is to see all these incredibly talented performers and people involved in wrestling to flourish and to have great lives and to give us great memories. So I'm all for healthy competition, and I want to see WWE do great. I want to see AEW do great. I want to see them all all these independents around the world have a great time of it. So thank you, Keith, for writing this wonderful book, and thank you for joining me once again on the show.
Okay, and we'll be talking soon off air, I'm sure of that.
That's it for another Wrestling Life. Thank you so much for my guest today. Thank you to all of you for joining me. Thank you, as always, to my brilliant producer, Jeff Easton from Tall Lake Productions, for bringing Wrestling Life to life. We've got so many of these fantastic conversations in our archives, so please do check us out wherever you get your podcasts. And the most important thing of all, please hit that follow button, please like us, please tell a friend, and please talk about us using the hashtag WrestlingLifePod. So that's it for another episode. I've been Ben Veal. This has been Wrestling Life with Ben Veal. I'll see you soon for more real talk from real talent. Bye.